Okay, I was about to get into some new lessons, but I was cleaning up my craft room, and it's really cluttered right now. And if you're a crafter and you're watching this video, you know what I'm talking about, But I have 20 years of art supplies, over 20 years of art supplies and crafting supplies, and so you can imagine what my room could potentially look like. But anyways, I was coming across a pack of boards, and they were most of these are the original display samples that we used to send out to, different stores that used to carry our line, and I thought they were some copies, colored copies, laminated colored copies, but they were the originals that I just happened to laminate. But in this video, I kind of go through some of them, and I show you, some of my early scenes that I did for a Stamp of the Hand company. Right here, this is a colored copy right here, but you can kind of see the progression of some of the earliest samples to, some of the newer samples and techniques and color schemes that we used to, that I'm into nowadays. I mean, I did a lot of these scenes years ago, but relatively new as far as the latest media that's available. And these right here are actual postcards, but the samples that I did back when are they were made for color laser machines when those came out. It was just too expensive to have individual postcards made up back in the day, before digital printing. You used to have to take these, and you can gang these. You can take a bunch of different postcards and group them for a printer, but for each one of these scenes like this, they would have had to do what they call color separations to work them through the four-color process. What is it? Cyan, magenta, and yellow and black or whatever, and it was all a very expensive process. But to get different postcards like this made, or just some printed samples to make it kind of I don't know, a little bit more economically feasible to do, you would have had to have, let's say, 5,000, of the same scene printed up, so the cost per piece would come down. Otherwise, you're talking about a very expensive process when you talk about plate layouts and things like that with the different companies. So anyways, these are what some of the different scenes used to look like back in the day. And I used to, because they weren't postcards, nice stiff, this is probably printed on something like a chrome coat that we do our scenes on. It was just on, just laser copy paper. So what we used to do is laminate them. These ones, like I said, are the originals, but we would take these, you would shoot these at 100%, and I would laminate these. So it was a really, time-consuming process, getting these made up, printed up, 20 or 30 or 50 at a time, and just laminating these through a laminator, And it took so long, I eventually got 2 laminators, but I was just sending, these sleeves through. But we used to go through just, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of sleeves at a time, getting these display sheets sent out to different stores. The internet wasn't out there, so we used to have a lot of different instructions underneath each scene, so people kind of got the gist of what was happening within each scene, and stores would typically display these alongside shelves of stamps or whatnot, or place them right next to our grouping. And people can kind of get the idea of what stamp was used in it, and kind of make their choices from there. So thankfully the internet is out there, and digital printing, and this YouTube channel where you can kind of describe how to do a scene visually, in a step-by-step process, instead of looking at a finished scene like this and just kind of reading the description and kind of getting the basic gist of it. But it was really hard to explain, in a little section like this, a little paragraph, or even if it was a larger paragraph like that, how exactly did the scene. So it wasn't really a a visual process as much as just a finished thing and a bunch of dialogue. So much easier these days. But anyways, I'll go through in this video some of the sample boards that we used to send out, and I don't know, this video is kind of as much of a record for myself, because I'll probably take all these samples and put them away somewhere, never to be seen again. So anyways, hope you enjoy it, and thanks for watching. Thank you for tuning in to Stampscaping 101. It's been a while since I've come out with any new videos, but I've been working on some new designs, and started cleaning up my office and stamping area the other day, and came across some old sheets from some of the first samples that I did, you know, that have to do with landscape or scenic stamping. These stamps right here are from, it was my second line of scenic stamps at a Stamp in the Hand company. That's a company that I used to work for. And these are color laser copies right here, and that technology had come out right around the time that I made these, so it made it possible to do short-run copies, and made it possible to do things like this, and to send them out to the different stores that were carrying the stamps at that time. So I always thought it was really important to get some samples out there, and around this time that these were made, this wasn't too far from the time when some of us at you know, the company would do handmade originals and send those out as samples, which wasn't really practical, you know, if you have to do that for every client. So the color lasers really made it possible to do it. But you can see early on we were using, this is pre-raised dye-base pads, so we were using probably a set of Marvy markers, maybe about 20 different colors. So you can see that there, you know, on this one especially, there aren't too many different colors used in every one of these scenes right here. I left my, you know, I wasn't really developing my skies at the time in terms of, you know, saturated tones and kind of focusing the light source in the scenes at that point. You know, there was very little blending going on, a little bit of sponging here and there. I'm not quite sure how I did it, but mostly the colors were being achieved by coloring on the stamps themselves, and then making an imprint. Like you could see some browns and greens in here, and you know, what you see is what you get, pretty, you know, much, you know, as far as the original to the copies. You know, the copies were pretty true to the original even at that time, and this was a long time ago. Late 80s, probably early, very early 90s, maybe 89 or 1990 or so, when this tech came out. So it was great for the company at the time, just to get these short-run prints done. Okay, now after that I started doing a little bit more with color. This was using this stamp called Field of Sky. Started focusing on the color. This isn't too much, you know, longer after this, maybe a year or so, when we started adding more tones. You know, they started becoming a little bit more moody, and I don't know, same imagery. It was probably a grouping of about 20 images that I was working with, so, you know, a little bit of a different kind of take, you know, in terms of, you know, focusing light and developing the idea of light and reflected light, and kind of getting areas to kind of pop out a little bit more. Here's the same river right here, from scene to scene. Okay. Now this is when I started Stampscapes, and these were some of my first scenes that I did for samples. I would get this 11 by 17 sized printout, and what I would do is I would dry mount these using or spray mount them onto kind of a stiff cardboard, and I would cut out all of these and send these out like, you know, kind of stiffer, kind of postcard types of things. It wasn't practical to have postcards made up at the time either, because they really didn't have digital printing. So if you wanted to do like one scene like this, you probably would have had to print up maybe 5,000 of them to, you know, to make it, you know, practical in terms of per piece image. So anyways, these color Xeroxes were the way to go. Now, I'm kind of showing these for a couple of reasons, just kind of more of a record for myself, but also these scenes were done in probably 1993 or 94. And this is just come to show you, if you don't have your originals out, you know, these are just tucked away somewhere in a closet, you know, with no light, and the color saturation, these are the originals now. The color saturation is exactly the same, you know, as probably when I, you know, when I stamped it out. The colors won't really fade if you do that. So that being said, if you do an original, especially with dye-based inks, and you want to display it somewhere, I would get a copy made or photograph it and have a print made of it and display that, and keep your originals kind of out of the light, and you know, the color saturations and the scenes will look pretty much the same as when you first stamped them out, you know, years and years and decades later. And I would imagine this will look this way, I don't know for how long, but the paper I don't think is acid-free either. In terms of this type of chrome coat that we were using, I don't know if there has been some yellowing. I'm looking in the whites right here, and they still look true white. I don't see any kind of an aging type of yellowish type of hue that's starting to, you know, kind of overtake those whites in there at all. So they should be okay. Some more scenes. This little white dots in here that we were using at that time, I can even run my finger along here, and it's a lot more textured because I was using this thing called a white paint pen as opposed to the gel pens that are out these days, which are probably a little bit more forgiving as far as ease of use. You know, we have clogging with white gel pens these days, but you would get that a lot more with the white paint pens that we were using at the time, and there were only two that you can really use, and then if you let them set for a while, you know, the ink and the binder inside would often separate, so you just, you know, so you'd start using it and you would get this little kind of like clear liquid that would be coming out, you know, if you didn't use your pen often enough. But I don't know, it did the trick, and like I said, this is pre a lot of media that were out there. Now these two groupings right here were done, like I said, early on, and I was probably using about, I'm guessing about 20, maybe less, maybe 14 of the Marvy style brush markers like this, okay? I would go to different workshops, and I think I had about maybe 14 of these brush markers for everyone to use. You know, everyone would get 14 each, okay? So you can see the color schemes were very limited as far as the range of tones. I mean, you could mix and match and everything like that, and Marvy did have a set of probably about 120 colors. But you couldn't take that around, you know, and have everyone have, you know, 120 colors in a workshop. You know, it would cost a fortune. But you can see these days, I mean, there's so many more colors available in terms of stamp pads and ranges of value and saturations. Everything right here is very bright. And, you know, I mean, at the time it looked okay, but, you know, I would really miss my other colors that, you know, they have these days. Now, a lot of the workshops that I used to give were based around this thing called the tonal applicator. It's what I use a lot of the stylus tools for these days as far as the applications of colors. But here's an original I did. This is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and I was talking about the tonal applicators and how to apply tone. Yeah, it was always hard to kind of explain how to use that type of image in written form. Now I can just do it in a video, and I can show something in 15 seconds that took me, you know, 2 typewritten, you know, full page explanations to explain that, I'm tapping like this, going from the outside in. That's with the tonal applicator stamp, which a lot of the workshop content was based around, but I had to try to do it in a visual form right here. This one's using the tonal applicator raise and tonal applicator flame stamp. So this is the original again, and it's, it's still really bright in terms of light fastness and fading. The brightest colors when it comes to dye-based inks are the most prone to fading. So you can see the really bright shades of pink up here and the yellow are still as bright as they were over 20 years ago. So like I said, if you want to put something on display, I'd recommend you copy it and kind of put the original away, and it'll look great for a very long time. Here's another scene right here that I was doing to show the sky imagery, how to use especially the clouds together with some of the different sky imagery. I have a video on this now of how to blend things together in a seamless fashion so clouds don't look like a bunch of rectangle shapes in the shape of the stamp in the sky, and how to blend things like the Milky Way in with something like a more open cloud right there. So and this is laminated right here, but I was thinking this is just a copy, but when I can feel right here, I felt, oh, that is the original right underneath here. So it's not the lamination that's keeping it from fading, it's just the fact that I don't have it, exposed to light that's doing it. This one's not laminated right here, by the way, and those other ones weren't. But, so they look just fine. Another stamp, or another display using the cloud stamp, and right here I was showing how you can kind of stamp these out, and in this open area, if you're not using something like the Milky Way, you can kind of just fill it in with tone up here. One time I was walking around in Stampa Barbara, the one that was in Orange County in Crystal Court at South Coast Plaza, and they had little nooks for each company to display, where you would display your stamps. And I was talking to one of the workers there, and she says, Kevin, you wouldn't believe how many of these clouds were sold because of this scene right here. So, as we all know, samples are everything, and when it comes to our visual, community of rubber stamping, Milky Way stamp, stamped alone, and bringing tone around it to really fill in that area here. So I guess these three were kind of done in conjunction with one another. I would send these three samples out to put on display around our stamps so people can kind of get the idea of how to incorporate, what would otherwise be like a brick on a page, to blending it together with the surrounding area, and how to utilize that type of idea with, the landscape imagery in there. Okay. Here's a scene right here that I did a little bit later, using a lot of the pigment inks and things like that. Very light toned, like I said, these kind of lighter, brighter shades would have a tendency of fading very quickly, but again, we have these, stored away so they look, pretty accurate as far as, what they look like freshly stamped, okay? And this paper that I was using at the time was probably the King James variety, but chrome coat, looks just the same as well. Some other scenes, I started adding a lot more dialogue down below as far as the usage of certain things, or whatever point I was trying to get across in the scene. I would try to get it written down here. Later on it became easier with the internet and the website. I could put as much dialogue, or explanation below each scene as I wanted to, but back then, the internet didn't really exist, so we had to do it in written form and, put these types of things up in stores, if they chose to display them. There's a scene right here that I really liked in terms of going back to that Milky Way stamp right here and kind of taking things a little bit more to the extreme. These are half sheet size scenes right here, and I just wanted to go into clouds and things like that. I always liked the color scheme of this one, how this came out. I always used to take a little bit of that same blue there that's used in that cloud and put it into my warm color scenes just for a little bit of a change of hue right there. Up here it looks a little bit more green because it's kind of going over some of the yellow that's already been stamped down, but that right there was the Adirondack Lights Aqua, which has unfortunately been discontinued, but what you would do is you would just take your lightest blue possible, and you can even blot it off a little bit, or, you know, if you're using like a stylus or sponging method, take your lightest blue that you can find, blot it off, and just add a little bit into your warm tones if you want that type of, I don't know, temperature change in a very subtle way. Just, you know, so things aren't so I don't know, temperature monotonous, you know, in terms of just only warm tones. And I used to put a little bit of yellow, like, I don't know if you can tell right there from this camera, maybe you can, but it's a little bit more of a warm tone right there. And that's taking a little bit of this lightest yellow right here and putting it into my otherwise, you know, 100% cool color scheme of blues and purples. Okay. Another one, warm tones, rocks down here. I think I put a little blue down here and a little bit of a blue up here somewhere, or something like that. More of that type of sky, type of effect. Kind of monochromatics. I wanted to go with kind of a triptych type of look right here, talking about different color schemes in the dialogue right here, but another scene using the similar tones. This is probably using about 4 different colors or so, and just you know, blues, violets, and combinations of both where one overlaps the other. Okay. Getting into some of the tropics right here. This is I don't know, I used to have a need to fill in right here. I didn't want to, you know, like in these other ones right down here, I didn't want to have to cut some of these things out, you know, so what I started doing was, you know, like in those other scenes right over there, I used to put in more of dialogue, you know, right here, so I can just laminate these. This is the original, though. It's a laminated original, but I don't know, going into some different things, I really enjoyed doing these little types of font and, you know, types of things going back to my graphic design class days. But one of the first scenes that I did on this isn't quite a 8.5 by 11. This whole sheet is 8.5 by 11, but doing just kind of a larger format scene right here beyond the half page 8.5 by 11, because I wanted to get this Seaside Cove stamp, and this is one stamp right here, and I just added that little spearfisher, but the stamp right here has been placed in there, but I wanted to use an opportunity to use that whole stamp in one scene, so I don't know, when you're stamping that big, it takes a long time to do it. Scene like that, I found. Stampscapes sold here, I don't know, something to put into stores, and sometimes I'd go and teach at classes and they would have this type of thing in their window. But, I don't know, I always liked this scene right here. I did this scene for demonstrations a lot. I like the way the trees, the pine row trees right here kind of looked in the distance, especially when you stamp it in kind of a lighter hue. This is black, kind of like a mid-tone blue, and then this is like a really light, it looks like a grayish green almost. I don't know what color that was right there. It might have just been ghost stamping it out a little bit, you know, in terms of getting one impression and stamping it again in a third impression so it stamps out lighter, but I always like that little corridor right here, so a lot of times I would return to that composition, you know, when I was doing demonstrations at conventions. I like this one too, about how to just kind of place this Lakeside Cove really high in the composition. So a lot of times when I would do triptychs, you know, you can see this kind of triangular format in terms of how to display these things together. So that kind of creates this compositional balance. You have someone coming in from this side, something coming in from this side, and this one's kind of like up here, you know. I don't want it perfectly center, but, you know, it has that kind of format. So you'll see that a lot in my different scenes, even if it's a single scene as well. This one, I had this little bicyclist, you know, triptych, but, and then I created this little story down here of going bike riding or something like that. But you can see they're kind of moving from the that side of the scene. They're more kind of, you know, positioned on the right side of the scene, center, and I don't know, they're not, these aren't positioned over here, but you can see they're moving in this direction, so it keeps the eye kind of moving that direction. But here you kind of see this thing again, you know, here's this moon as this kind of this triangular format. So triptychs are a fun way to work in too. If you know, most of ours are just, you know, and me too, most of the time I'm just doing a single scene, but if you kind of think in terms of a trio of imagery, being related by color scheme or by theme of the bicyclists, and compositional formatting. It's kind of a fun way to work, and you can kind of put these things together, and it kind of can create a more kind of a dynamic visual statement, you might say, than just a single scene. So, and then you can kind of display these together. You know, some people put them in frames or something like that, or they could frame it in one frame and, you know, put these different images up there like that, but they also look good just framed individually and just displayed that way. Another one, it's kind of a triptych, you know, because I was sending these off and unlike an individual postcard. So this one's kind of, I put these people positioned on the bottom, they're kind of moving up. You have this kind of pointy thing kind of pointing up, and then I have a sky image up top, so you have top, middle, and ground right here. Unrelated in terms of color scheme and whatnot, but it kind of works in terms of a, you know, a display as far as a trio of images go, and it's working vertically as opposed to horizontally like the last ones. Another thing you can see, real center based composition. Everything's kind of in the middle. This one you have this thing focused on the left side of the scene. Everything's kind of going that way, you know. And then on this one I have this canoeist and they're going that way, okay? So you have this type of thing right here again. But anyways, these are the originals again, so you can see the saturation, especially in that pink right there. It's a very bright pink. Oh, by the way, I was using more pads these days than the Marvy pens, because raised dye base pads came onto the scene, I don't know, 95-ish, 6 probably or so. Another triptych. So everyone, this is a scene right here that everyone would thought it was upside down. Oh, you put that upside down, you know? And I would think, no, it's not upside down, but here's this image right here, and it's the same exact size as this one up here, that ledge. So I made it like you were looking out from underneath the ledge out into the great unknown, you know, you can see the hang gliders like that, but so many people told me that, that eventually I just said, oh yeah, I guess, yeah, I don't know how I got that, but it was always a source of conversation. Maybe it was a better type of advertising thing that it created so much, I don't know, not controversy, but discussion amongst store owners and their clientele and me and their, you know, the store owners and whatnot, about everyone kind of pointing out, oh, by the way, Kevin, you positioned this upside down. And I was thinking, well, how can I do that? I mean, I dry mounted this and I've had this, you know, I'm printing this up year after year after year. And, but anyways, that was kind of funny. So that's the story about this composition. But I put this on top because, you know, I have this kind of thing positioned down below, and I wanted to cap this triptych up top with something, you know, so it's kind of closed. So, you know, we have this composition right here where kind of it's closed on the top, closed on the bottom, and, you know, the kind of the focus is right in here as far as this imagery goes. But I don't know. All of these can be seen up on the website as well. Triptychs, as far as time, this one is supposed to represent, I think, I don't know, something maybe jungle or something like that, an eruption and the Ice Age or whatnot. I mean, we don't have the Ice Age with the birds, but So they kept it compositionally formatted in terms of these birds are heading this way and these birds are heading in this way. Okay, 3 different color schemes. They can represent seasons as well. This one's the triptych in terms of the tropics, and they're related in terms of color scheme, as you can see. Times a day, whatnot, you know, tropics, cricket limb, and leafless limbs with the leaf cluster. Oh, this is talking about the tonal applicator in terms of adding tone around your different objects. Another one based on the tropics, and this is another scene. This is not the original, and this is not mine. This is a client of mine that did a 4x6 scene of this chapel right here, but this is in my samples thing that I was kind of coming across. But take a look at all the little white dots that she used. She used a white gel pen and a blue gel pen, I think a light blue gel pen. Okay, over here you can see it, because this has been blown up, you know, a 4x6 inch has been blown up to 11x17, and I wanted, you know, to put this on display because we used to display this in our booth at conventions, so I wanted people to be able to see it from a distance, but also to take a look at all that little white gel pen. You can kind of see the blue and the white in here, because in the darker areas the white would stand out too much, so she used the blue. And look at how effective that is on the rooftop in terms of showing the lighting direction on the trees. So how many dots are in here, I have no idea. There's a lot of them, of course, and you know, she's working on a 4x6 inch piece of paper too. So anyways, that was always one of my favorite scenes, you know, that over the years, and she sent this one in to me. I'm not sure if I think she sent the original and I sent it back to her, of course, but she was one of the better, I don't know, stampers in terms of the Stampscapes line, in terms of coming up with some really dynamic imagery. I'll put her name in the notes section below this video. But anyways, little historical, you know, notation as far as these scenes went, going back to my early days of scenic stamping and how I was using the stamps. I wasn't even a stamper really at the time. I was doing a lot of coloring for the tops of our imagery at the time in the Stamp in the Hand, but I wasn't doing a lot of the samples or, you know, anything like that at all. So I came up with the nature line, and they said, all right, Kevin, we don't know what to do with this. You know, you drew them, you stamp it. So that's what it tended to look like early on. I don't know, I should go back to and do something with that exact color scheme again, and, you know, but I don't know, see what I can do with those same colors today. So, I don't know, it's probably about 10 different pens. Maybe I'll do that in the next, or one of the upcoming instructional videos. Okay, so anyways, hope you enjoyed the scenes and whatnot, and thanks again for watching.